So let's bring Todd Buchholz in to talk more about this. And Todd, it was always good to talk to you. We were going to speak, and we will in a moment, about President Bush with you. I know you're an economic advisor to President Bush 41. So let me ask you about that in a second after we talk about the markets, because it's an interesting day. So the president, a lot is being made about this tweet where he says, "I am a tariff man." It was like a series of tweets, actually. It was four, where, it started off okay, said the negotiations with China, they've begun. If we can make a deal that's a fair deal, we're going to make the deal. And his larger point was, but, if not, I'm a tariff man. I'm going to keep putting these tariffs on, and we're bringing billions into our country as a result of that. That's his view. What's yours?
Well, my view is that Donald Trump is trying to get a deal. And if you read Nobel Prize winning game theorists, they'll tell you that three of the main planks of negotiating are: number one, ask for the world, ask for too much; plank number two, act a little nuts, go a little crazy, make the other side be fearful; and plank number three, round up some allies. Well, Donald Trump's been pretty good at plank number 1 and 2. Recently, maybe he's got some allies with this new USMCA deal, but this is part of his negotiating. Now, understandably, the market doesn't like this. And you'd mentioned President George Herbert Walker Bush, whom I did serve in the White House. Now, there was one steady man. You didn't have to worry that in the middle of the night Bush would send out a tweet, because first of all, there were no tweets at that point in history.
Of course.
But secondly, he wasn't the sort of guy to want to shake things up. This is a very different time and a very different president, and the stock market has to bite its nails whenever President Trump goes into a negotiating session.
Well, it is kind of an interesting point because, in the remembrances of President Bush, there have been a lot of positive things said over the last few days about his ability to negotiate with foreign countries on all sorts of different items, going back to the time before he was president, when he was either the UN ambassador, the envoy to China, whatever it may be, and then when he was president, not only on issues of national security, but to these issues we're talking about. It was President Bush, right, that negotiated NAFTA. So what the pluses and minuses of those two strategies? You think it's just because it's a different time that this type of strategy is more effective, or what do you think?
Well, it of course is a different time, and there's some people who would argue that the country is so divided, the world is so divided, that you need a leader who is iconoclastic, who wants to break down the status quo. That's what we have in President Trump. Now, neither President Trump nor President Bush had the kind of, the people skills that Ronald Reagan had, for instance. So Ronald Reagan had that, full palette of colors he could draw from. He could be a tough negotiator, but then he could also be charming. President Bush wasn't quite as tough a negotiator, and Donald Trump, well, his charm, is a different
Maybe
sort,
a little too tough, some would say. Right. Well, it's interesting because we don't know how all this is going to end up, so you can't grade his negotiating style on this particular issue because we have no idea how it does end up. But what's a win here? Because there is kind of a school of thought from some people that we've spoken to that say, what the president may do here is hammer China, on Twitter and elsewhere as hard as he possibly can, but then at the end of the day kind of give in and make some sort of a deal that's not 100% different than where we are now. And if he does that, will it be worth it? Because there's some pain going on now, and farmers and other people in the economy.
That's right. Look, I think the elections, the recent elections, were rather bracing for the Republican Party. And I think there is a question whether farmers whose income have fallen 13% are going to be sticking with the GOP in the next election. And I think Donald Trump does need to reach a deal, but the Chinese need to make some concessions as well. They can't be going into their own kangaroo courts and ripping off our intellectual property.
Well, they claim,
and that's one
did you
of the
see
things.
The headline today it was a Bloomberg report, but you see they claim they are. They claim they're going to crack down on intellectual property. And since then, the market sold off a few hundred points. I don't think anybody believes them. But
Connell, if you study Confucius, and I didn't study him in a fortune cookie, but you can find a fortune cookie somewhere where Confucius said, a book is a lovely thing to steal. That is, it is part of Confucian philosophy that intellectual property should be ripped off.
Right.
So it's going to take a whole lot to get the Chinese to back off from that principle of their philosophy.
All right, Todd, you're getting too deep on us. I got to let you go. Todd, thank you very much.
Hey, cookies are deep.
Todd Buchholz, it's always good to see you.